The shiv didn't just break. It detonated. It exploded into a dozen pieces of glittering steel, the sound like a tiny, frozen firework in the suffocating quiet of the prison yard. The attacker, a brute named Cyrus, stared in disbelief at the useless handle. His knuckles white. His target, an ancient, frail inmate, known only as the Silent Saint, hadn't even flinched, his posture a pillar of calm. The new arrival, Leo, watched from across the yard, his heart hammering against his ribs. He'd seen the shiv strike the old man's chest, but there was no blood. Not even a tear in the fabric. The saint simply turned and walked away, his silence more intimidating than any scream. Leo was about to learn that in cell block Gamma, violence was a currency, but silence. Silence was absolute power. Gamma Block was a prison within a prison, a concrete tomb for the lifers and the lost causes. It smelled of rust, regret, and a strange, metallic ozone. The unspoken rule, the one that governed all others, was simple and absolute. Do not disturb the saint. He never spoke. He never ate with the others. He simply existed, a point of absolute stillness in a world of quiet desperation. He's the reason this block is so quiet. A hollow-eyed inmate named Finn whispered to Leo, his voice barely a breath. He keeps the peace. Leo scoffed. He's just an old man. Cyrus's shiv must have been cracked or poorly made. Finn just shook his head, a sad, knowing smile on his face. It's not about the shiv. It's about the noise it made. You'll see. Everyone sees. Leo saw it the next week. Cyrus, the brute, who thrived on fear and intimidation, began to fade. It wasn't physical at first. His presence, his aggressive energy, seemed to diminish day by day. His loud boasts in the mess hall his confident stride became a slow, weary shuffle. He stopped making eye contact. It was as if his very ambition, his will to dominate, was being drained away, leaving an empty, passive shell. He was becoming one of the hollowed. Leo, a former architect who saw systems everywhere, started watching the saint, trying to understand the block's impossible structure. He noticed other inmates would approach the saint, not to speak, but to stand near him in the yard for a few quiet minutes. Afterwards, they would walk away with a look of profound calm, their usual anxieties and aggressions seemingly eased. But the saint, in turn, would look a little older, a little more tired, the lines on his face deepening ever so slightly. It was a transaction. Peace in exchange for something vital. Leo's obsession grew. He began searching for the blueprint of Gamma Block, convinced the secret was in its design. He found it in the prison library, in the margins of a century-old book on acoustic engineering. It was a series of frantic notes, written in a nearly invisible lemon juice ink by a former inmate, a desperate warning from the past. The notes didn't describe a prison. They described a machine, a monstrous engine. Gamma Block wasn't built to hold men. It was built to contain something else, and to feed it. The creator called it a resonance chamber, designed to amplify and feed on emotional and sonic energy, what the writer called noise. The warden of this place wasn't a man. It was the prison's own insatiable, parasitic hunger. The original design had been a catastrophic failure. The noise eater, as the inmate called it, was too efficient. Riots, screams, fights, the chaos only made the prison stronger, the very walls vibrating with a malevolent energy, driving the inmates into a feedback loop of madness. The final, terrified entry explained the impossible truths that had saved them all. One of us found a way, the note read. He learned to absorb the noise himself, to starve the beast. He takes our anger, our fear, our ambition, and in return, he gives us quiet. He is not a saint. He is a dam holding back an ocean of madness. Leo felt a wave of cold understanding wash over him. The saint wasn't a predator. He was a shield. He was absorbing the collective turmoil of the entire cell block to keep the real monster, the prison itself, dormant and sleeping. The hollowed weren't punished. They were the price of peace, their ambition sacrificed to feed the dam and keep the ocean at bay. The shattering of the shiv wasn't a miracle. It was a release of focused, stored, aggressive energy, a quiet detonation. But the notes ended with a dire warning, a chilling prophecy. The dam is old. It's cracking. When it breaks, the beast will wake, and after a century of hunger, it will feast. Leo began to see the signs everywhere. A low, almost subsonic hum was returning to the walls, a sound you felt more than heard. The lights in the corridor began to flicker in time with the agitated heartbeats of the inmates. The hollowed began to tremble in their bunks at night, as if residual fears and nightmares were being drawn back out of them. The saint was weakening. He was starting to stumble in the yard, his profound stillness beginning to waver like a candle in a draught. The prison was waking up. The truce was ending. Leo knew what he had to do. He couldn't fight the prison. He couldn't reason with it. He had to find a way to reinforce the dam. He approached the saint in the yard, the old man's eyes now clouded with exhaustion. The saint looked at him, and for the first time, Leo saw a flicker of something in his faded eyes. A desperate, silent plea. The saint raised a trembling hand, not to Leo's chest, but to his own throat, then to his own head. He was showing Leo what he needed. He needed a voice, a will, a soul's ambition. He needed more fuel for the fire. This wasn't a transfer of power that could be taken. It was a sacrifice that had to be given. Leo remembered his life on the outside, his burning, all-consuming drive to create skyscrapers that touched the clouds. He remembered the pride, the arrogance, the ambition, the noise that defined him as a person. He had to give it all away. Willingly had to become hollow to keep the others whole. The hum in the walls grew louder. A hungry, expectant sound. The other inmates were cowering in the corners of the yard, clutching their heads. "I understand," Leo whispered. Not to the saint, but to himself, a final act of will. He closed his eyes and focused on a single, perfect memory. The day he stood atop his first completed skyscraper, feeling like a god. He focused on the burning fire of that ambition, the very core of who he was. He didn't push it away. He let it fill him one last time, and then he offered it. The silent saint placed a frail, trembling hand on Leo's shoulder. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Leo felt it, a sensation like a vast, empty space opening up inside him, where his ambition used to be. A profound, peaceful, and utterly horrifying quiet filled his mind, erasing the memory of the skyscraper's view. He saw a faint, golden light, the essence of his drive, flow from him into the saint. The old man straightened, the deep lines on his face softening. The immense weight of his centuries was lifting from his shoulders. As the last of Leo's noise was transferred, the deep hum from the prison walls faded into absolute, perfect silence. The beast was sleeping again. The dam was restored, stronger than ever. The saint looked at Leo, his eyes now clear and sharp. He opened his mouth, and for the first time in decades, spoke in a voice that was barely a rasp. "Thank you," he said, and then, his duty fulfilled, his energy spent, he closed his eyes and peacefully crumbled into a pile of dust. Leo stood where the saint had been. The other inmates looked at him, not with fear, but with a new, solemn reverence. He felt nothing, no anger, no hope, no ambition, only a profound, silent stillness. He had become the new dam. The story of Leo and the Silent Saint is a chilling question about the cost of peace and the nature of sacrifice. If this tale of a silent prison resonated with you, show your support by hitting that LIKE button. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a journey into the quietest corners of horror. Now, we have a question for you. Would you sacrifice your own ambition and drive to bring peace and safety to everyone around you? Let us know your difficult choice in the comments below. Thank you for listening. Be wary of places that are too quiet. True silence is never empty. It's just waiting for a new voice to consume.